Welcome back. A fourth installment of Irrelevant Tales with me, G minus Mark. This isn't just going to be stories about who I've met. I'm just kind of getting used to talking to the camera and stuff like that. So I'm doing stuff like that. What I might eventually do is talk about some albums or reissues of the old days, or some collections I bought, just some amusing tales. So when I get run over by a truck, people can use it as evidence. I don't know. We're going to talk about Frankie Ford. Frankie Ford is another person I really love. I mean, we've got a couple of artifacts here. This is his classic album, incredible album cover, one of my favorites. And in the UK, a reissue of this came out on the Ace label. This was Johnny Vincent's Ace label, which was a Louisiana label, best known for Huey Smith and the Clowns. That kind of ties in with Frankie Ford. I'm not trying to do a biography of Frankie Ford though, but he made one of my favorite records ever, which is Alimony on Ace Records, the original Ace Records. And I bought the album, which was kind of a best of. It wasn't a straight up reissue of this, but I played it to death, and I particularly loved a ballad on here called Hour of Need. I used to play it again and again and again. So, in 1985, Frankie Ford, I found out, was playing near where I live. And here's something else I want to... This is an EP that my friend Ian Stropp, who has been a DJ on the rockabilly scene since the early 80s and is still doing it. This was a gift from him, and I want to thank him for that. So I heard Frankie was coming, and of course I was the geek. In 1985, I would have been 19. Yeah, I was 19, and I was super excited. And there used to be a guy who used to go to rock and roll gigs in London. There was a guy called Rex Inge who used to sell records, Rex's Rockin' Records, and he used to set up at various different weekenders and rock and roll shows and stuff like that. And he had a guy with him. I can't remember if it was his cousin or brother-in-law or some kind of guy that was part of his family, who was a photographer. And this is back in the 80s, remember. This is before we could just save something on Google and then print it on our laser printers. And this guy sold photographs of Gene Vincent, Eddie Cochran, and Elvis. Really good quality. He got, I don't know where they came from, but they were really good. And he would set up next to the record booth. And I had bought all the Frankie Ford ones. And when I found out that he was playing, I was super excited because I had these great photographs to... Here's one of them. Really, really cool photos. And I took about 4 of those. I had that EP back then, and I don't know what happened to the original copy that I had. And I took some 45s. I kind of overdid it a little bit. I had a bag of Frankie Ford stuff I was hoping to get signed. And he plays, and he was fantastic. His voice was perfect. The backing was good. It was better than I expected. It was a really good night. Weirdly enough, it was the week before I was going to see Dave Houston, who was performing with Tillman Franks, Johnny Horton's original bass player, because I remember Frankie Ford, when I was speaking to him, saying, "Oh, Dave Houston's here next week. Almost Persuaded is one of my favorite records," but I digress. So at the end of the show, he kind of comes out, and it's a small show in a small town. There's about 3 people kind of go to get his autograph. Like, one's holding, a couple of people have pulled flyers off the wall, and someone's got a beer mat, and it's just kind of, "Oh, nice to meet you." And I'm there, like I should be the head of his fan club. And one thing I haven't mentioned yet, Frankie Ford was notoriously gay, flamboyant, almost like a Liberace-esque kind of mannerism. He was certainly not in the closet in any way, and there were various stories. It was not a time that people were as sensitive to different sexual preferences, so there were often a lot of jokes. You can imagine the kind of things people said, but that didn't bother me in the slightest. I mean, I loved Frankie Ford. Who do I care who he slept with? So I get there, and he's super impressed with everything I've got. He's like, "Oh my God, where did you get this stuff? Look at me there." And I say, one of my favorite records was Hour of Need. And I was 19 at the time, probably the age he was there. and it's really faded now, but it says to mark. Oh, one of them says Hour of Need. It's not this one, actually. I just found this one because it was on my wall. I don't know where the others are. So we're talking, and he's getting friendlier and friendlier. It's not really occurring to me that he's anything other than friendly until he says, you know, we should go back to my motel room after, and, you know, I'll tell you some great stories about the old days. And I say, cool, can I bring my girlfriend? To which he says, oh my God, please don't bring the fish. And one of my friends heard that, and it was often repeated, like, you know, I'd be somewhere and someone would say, don't bring the fish. And it's like, so that's my Frankie Ford story, really. I mean, I went to see him. I had a really positive experience with him. I could have slept with him if I'd wanted to, but I definitely wasn't really looking for that. I'd say it was a positive experience. So all in all, really, I mean, I guess it could have gone either way. Who knows? Who can say? This has been another thrilling. He was quite handsome. I mean, I wasn't too bad looking back in those days. I should go. Like, no.